Hello guys. This has been a long time coming. I know. I thought maybe you thought that maybe you thought that I've abandoned my channel, but I have not abandoned my channel. Um, I got COVID, and then I couldn't really talk, and I wouldn't have been able to talk for a really long time. Anyway, so this is a sort of, it's not really a new series. It's part of the Writers Aren't Always Right episode, looking at different articles to see what writers are saying about writing advice, different writing advice articles. And this time, the key phrase that I used in Google search is how to write a fiction novel. Are these articles helpful at all? Like, seriously. So, yeah, that's basically it. Just a reminder, just a Fox note. I'll be reacting and giving my opinions. And when I say reacting, maybe some of you have wondered if I'm reading the articles and I am, you know, reading the articles, so I'm not actually reacting when I see them in the slides, but actually a lot of the time I am, because when I take the snippet, the screenshot, I'm not really reading the words. You know what I mean? I'm just screenshotting, looking at like the first sentence and then the last sentence. And if I see something in one of those sentences that I read and I have some opinions, I might write a little note on the side. But usually I don't really read what it actually says. You know how you can gloss over things and not actually read it or understand it? So that's what I did. And I'm hoping you like my orangey background. I'm doing a lot of different pattern and background things recently. It's kind of fun. So anyway, another reminder, the good thing is that you can have me on in the background while you do things, because I read everything and tell you everything. And since I have really sort of sporadic uploads, if you want to keep up to date, know when I upload, you know the thing. It's a subscribe thing. Okay, so recently, actually, when I was watching YouTube, I noticed that whenever someone says subscribe, that the subscribe button kind of lights up. It's a new thing. I think that's pretty cool. It looks kind of rainbowy in my dark mode background. I don't know what it looks like in the other ones, in the light mode. And I'm curious, is it every time a YouTuber says subscribe, or is it only like that one time, or is it every single time? Like if I say subscribe, and I'm saying it a lot right now, is it lighting up every single time I say subscribe, or does it just light up once? Let me know. I really want to know about that. Okay, so we are getting in. So I looked up how to write a fiction novel. And it says I searched in July 24. Yes, it's been quite some time since I came up with this new search phrase to find more articles. Because the good thing to do for research is that you be a little bit exhaustive. I didn't want to just look at a few articles and say, okay, this is the best writing advice. I wanted to look at more to see what other articles are saying, and I thought, okay, I'll look up how to write a fiction novel. So these are the six, sorry, that we're going to be looking at for these episodes. Actually, we've already looked at number 3, which is masterclass, and so I'm going to be skipping that one. And so then we actually have 5. And so these numbers aren't in any particular order, okay? It's not like from best to worst or anything like that, because I don't even know. So what was starting down at number 6, like last time we started at the bottom, so we're starting at the bottom this time too. Self-publishing school. I didn't even know this existed. It might be a new website. I'm not sure. And their article is how to write a novel in 11 essential steps with free template. That was part of the sort of title. They have a template. Anyway. So we're getting into this. How to write a novel in 11 essential steps. When I see the word like essential or that you need these, I'm a little bit suspicious. Do you actually need them, or are they just trying to catch your attention because of SEO and that kind of stuff. I don't really know about that stuff. Anyway, this was written by R.E. Vance on September 21, 2021. So it's been a couple years, actually. So maybe this self-publishing to school isn't as recent as I thought it was, or maybe they came out in 2020. I don't know. A lot of things came out in 2020. So I screenshotted some parts in the introduction sort of section that they have. If you misunderstand how to write a novel with the proper story structure, your book will never sell. So you know how have you watched like Magic School Bus when you were a kid, like a 90s kid, or even if you're not a 90s kid, have you seen the Magic School Bus? There was a time when an episode where Miss Frizz, the kids are saying, "Oh, we're never gonna get out of this whatever that they were in," and Miss Frizzle is saying, "Never say never." And you know, it's right because there is a possibility, you know, that it's not never. So saying your book will never sell, I mean, I guess they're trying to make you think that this article is really essential, you know, that you need to read this article in order to sell your book. Well, anyway, you know, I have a little bit of problem with that. And also saying proper story structure is like, if the story doesn't have a proper structure, will it go down the drain? Will it be a book prison? There's this book called The House of Leaves. I think it's called The House of Leaves. And I haven't read it, but I've watched a video of someone sort of reading and reacting to it because it's not structured like your typical story. It actually spirals down into madness. I kind of want to check it out, but it's also a really thick book, and I'm kind of a little bit intimidated with thick books. I mean, you need the time to read it too. And it's kind of, I don't know, I looked at it and it's a lot. So I don't know if I'm going to read it. But anyway, it doesn't have I don't think it follows what is called like the quote unquote proper story structure. And it still sells. So, well, anyway, next screenshot. If you're ready to learn what it takes to write a great novel, stick around. We're breaking down the 11 steps you need, and need is in all caps, along with the most common questions we get. Okay, so when I screenshotted this, I didn't realize it says the most common questions we get, and they actually do a Q&A at the end, which is really nice. I mean, I haven't seen any writing articles, do a Q&A of most common questions. I mean, that's pretty cool. But we'll see what the rest of the article is like. I mean, that you need. Do we really need it? I don't know. So, we're going on, and this is the first step. Do you like my Hearts and Stars background if you're watching this? And if you're not watching it, I have a Hearts and Stars background. Okay, craft your story idea and premise. That's step 1. I guess it's step 1. They call it 11 essential steps, but I don't know if these steps are meant to go in order. So, anyway, let's read. This is really what will kick off your book. You probably already have an idea for writing a novel, and that's why you're here. The tricky part is taking a single idea and turning it into a full story. Yes, that's right. If you're like most fiction writers, the idea is very clear and very vivid. You're just not sure what's needed to turn it into a story. For that, we always go to the premise. The premise of a novel is the overarching concept that sets up intrigue. For example, in Hunger Games, note here that Hunger Games is going to come up a ton in this article. I think the author likes this book. The premise is, what if a society forced people to fight to the death, even children? That is a single idea that holds a lot of promise. I don't know why this isn't italics. For an intriguing story. It says, there will be violence, heartache, and pain. And to readers, that is perfect. Yeah, to some readers, not all readers. I've seen some booktubers who prefer like a warm, cozy mystery or cozy romance than any of these fantasy, drama, dystopian stuff. But anyway, Here's a guide for turning your novel idea into a premise and story. Ask yourself, what if? And write down several alternate paths your story could take. Choose one of those ideas that holds the most promise for excitement, intrigue, and conflict. Build a mind map using this premise and branch out various possibilities. Take your mind map and begin building out the steps below. Steps below. Yes, so that's from step 2 to 11. That's what they're talking about. So, okay. Well, for this first step, this is really just a thinking part. Ask yourself what if and write down several alternate paths your story could take. This is a good exercise, I would say. You can definitely it can even be for a story that you're already working on and you're stuck in a scene and you don't know what to do. You're like, what if this? What if that? And for me, I don't really write it down. I just keep it in my head, but you can write it down. What if, I don't know. What if, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Okay, so I haven't really had my dose of coffee today yet. So if my mind spaces out in the beginning part of this video, that's because I haven't had much coffee. Okay, so choose one of those ideas that holds the most promise for excitement, intrigue, and conflict. Excitement, intrigue, and conflict, excitement and intrigue at least is subjective. Because there have definitely been some times when I've read a book that I didn't really think was exciting, but a lot of other people thought it was exciting. Or if we go to sort of more in the writing side of things, I have presented ideas to other writers saying, well, I have this idea number 1, number 2, and number 3. And for me, I was thinking about, number 2 seems the most interesting, but I want other people's opinions about it. And a lot of people were saying number 1 was interesting. And that was the one I found least interesting and exciting and intriguing. And I thought, that is interesting. So, I think it's subjective. So, but I think you can decide that. They don't say this here, but I think, when you're writing, you want to have fun, right? You at least want to like your story. And if you're having fun and you're enjoying writing your story, then it will show in your story. It's kind of weird. It does show. I have found that there are some books that I've read that was like, I don't know. Did the author really enjoy writing this? I'm not sure. But then the ones that I can tell that they've enjoyed writing it, maybe if it wasn't my cup of tea, but I can tell that it's a really good story. So I think you can decide if it's exciting or intriguing yourself. Don't think about what other people might say or think. So, you write it for your own pleasure. You can start out like that. You don't have to think about what sells in that, that's pressure on yourself. They don't say anything like that here. I don't know if they should. Maybe they should say that holds the most promise for excitement, intrigue, and conflict to you, make it a little bit more like this is a subjective thing in the beginning, it's fine, kind of thing. So we're moving on to the second step. It says develop characters. Okay. So, well, let's read. No novel can exist without great characters. Even the crappiest of plots can be saved by incredible characters. Spend time on the step of writing a novel. There's an exclamation point. I tried to emphasize that. Each main character should have a backstory, description, personality traits, and a purpose or arc for your novel. Remember, you may build your characters as you build your plot and world. Each of these should complement one another in the sense that they are building onto each other. You may have a character trait that is really, really inconvenient with the world. This will create additional conflict to add entertainment value to your story. So I put a note here because when I saw develop characters and characters, crappiest of plots can be saved by incredible characters. Okay, so I read this book called The Marksman by Rati Mehrotra. I don't even know if I'm saying her name right. Anyway, the world, the lore is so interesting. Taking place in some kind of post-apocalyptic desert sci-fi fantasy situation, and there's this group of women who are like this tribe, but they're like assassins, but not really. And it was just kind of fascinating. Then there was this idea that there used to be humans before them, and they left this sort of technology behind. And it was just so interesting. I've never really read a story that takes place in sort of a barren desert tribal kind of situation. It was really interesting. But the characters were not that good. And I've read some book reviews of this book, and other people seem to agree that the characters were just kind of weak and kind of like nothing really. They didn't seem real. They didn't seem believable. So great characters, yeah, great characters can be ruined by terrible plots, but a great plot can be ruined by terrible characters. No, I mean a great book can be ruined by terrible characters. There were some character traits inconvenient to the world. What do they mean by character traits inconvenient to the world? You mean like if there is a world that is ruled by a government? Like, since this article seems like Hunger Games, let's bring up the Hunger Games. It's ruled by a government, and the character trait is that maybe Katniss is rebellious? Is that a character trait? I'm not sure. Actually, character trait inconvenient to the what does that even mean? So you go to the next, and it's just the next step. They give more examples down below in the other steps, which is nice. They should give examples up here too. I think they can give some examples. Examples are so important. I read a lot of these writing articles that are just so vague. They say you need to do this and build your plot and the world and develop characters and give them personality. And like, yes, but maybe you can be a little bit more specific about what that means. And I find problems with that because it's like, even though I'm not a newbie at writing, I still want examples, like really concrete examples. You know, they're just very specific examples are so very helpful. And I even used to give these sort of vague advice, like, oh, you need to build your character, you know, and build the world. But what does that exactly look like? People need examples. I mean, how are they even going to start doing anything if they don't have examples? So anyway, that's what I wanted to say here. So for developing characters, no novel can exist without great characters. That is, what do you mean by great? I don't know what they're thinking about when they mean great characters. They should give examples. No novel can exist without great characters. For example, The Hunger Games cannot exist without Katniss. But what makes her great? What makes her a great character? Explain in this section, please. That would have been very helpful if you like The Hunger Games so much. You'll see. You'll see. They really like The Hunger Games. Anyway, we're moving on. Okay. Number 3 is create your world. Okay, so they just said, sorry, my nose is just kind of, it's not stuffy, but I don't know what's going on with that. I'm going to have a sip of coffee. It's good stuff. It's like this maple coffee, and it's still, it was on sale. It was like a Halloween edition. Even though Halloween is over, they still had some left, I guess, and they're trying to sell it on sale. So this maple coffee is really good. And anyway, so yeah, they say you can build your characters as you build your plot and world. He says you may build your characters. So, a world can happen without specific characters being talked about. Yes. Plot cannot happen without a character. You cannot just talk about plot without a character. I mean, I don't even know how you would do that. Maybe if you speak in general terms, but still, you need some kind of focus, right? I'm making so many hand gestures right now, and you can't even see me. Anyway. So, yeah, so they have it as a separate step. I feel like the world should be created before the characters, if they are going to have some step situation going on. Although it kind of goes hand in hand. I mean, step 2 and 3 can be done at the same time. Because a character, if you want to develop a character, they have to be situated in some world somewhere, because their thinking and their clothes, their likes and dislikes will be affected by the world that they live in. Like if they live in a modern world, maybe their first worry is, did I text my friend last night? Did I remember to do that? And if they're not in a modern world, maybe their worry is, I don't know, do we have enough canned food to survive the winter? I don't know why I'm thinking about Little House on the Prairie, but I'm thinking about that. That's not a different world. Are we going to, who is going to be the next person to go into the Hunger Games? Will it be me? Will it be someone I know? And so the Hunger Games, it's like part of that world's world. You know what I mean? So anyway, I think when you think about a character, you're also thinking about the world at the same time. So you can't really separate it. But on the other hand, there are aspects of the world that are sort of separate from your character. Like if you want to figure out how the government works, that's a thing that's separate from your character. So you would think about the character in the world when you're thinking about the character, but then you also think about other aspects of the world that don't directly affect your character. They might indirectly affect your character. Anyway, let's read. Even if you're writing a romance novel set in the modern world, you still have to build your world. Oftentimes, the term world building can be synonymous with building the setting of your novel. Why did they put that in quotes? Setting of your novel. These are some questions you should be asking before you write your novel. What is the weather environment like? What are the customs or cultural norms? What is one unique or interesting part of this world? What values do the people in this setting hold? What type of financial systems exist here? What types of things are considered taboo or wrong in this part of the world? There are countless questions you can answer, and the type of novel you're writing will dictate which questions to answer before you start. The type of novel you're writing will dictate which questions to answer before you start. I don't know why which is in italics. I don't know why they need to emphasize that. What is okay, so I wrote a note when I first saw just this list of questions. I thought, these types of questions overwhelm me. I would rather think as I write, make it up as I go. And that's pantser speech. So I'm going to talk about pantsers later. Even then, how can you think about all this before writing the story? World build for 10 years with this. Countless questions last a lifetime. Yeah. So there was a writer that I knew once, and she told me that she was working on this world with animals or something like that. And she was world building for 10 years. I even recently saw a YouTube video, and this is interesting that I saw this because I was thinking about her world building for 10 years. And it was about this guy who was world building for 10 years. Um, and if you're a writer, and then after that, you know what she did? She wrote the book in like a couple months. At the time, it was like, no way you can write a book in a couple months, but turns out it's possible. Anyway, even if you're writing a romance novel set in the modern world, you still have to build your world. You know, what do they exactly mean by that? Even if you're writing a romance novel set, you still have to build your world. What are you building? A romance novel set in the modern world. What are you building? Like, it's already there. Is there anything that you really need to make up? What are they actually talking about? I have no idea. Some questions you should be asking before you write your novel was weather environment. Like, I mean, because I'm a pantser and I don't sort of ask myself these questions. I just sort of think, oh wait, I just remembered that I can sort of play God and change the weather here. I don't really think much about how the weather and the environment is like in the world, particularly. That being said, it's not like it's gonna start, monsooning in the desert every single month, or that I don't know, it's gonna start snowing where people have never seen snow in their entire life. I usually establish the setting first. So the setting, as in, I usually take like some. If I write, because I write fantasy, I mean, is it a little bit different than the questions that they're asking here, or are they talking about a fantasy? Because if you're writing like a romance novel situated in the modern world, what are you going to be building? I mean, like, you take your hometown and you come up with some characters that are falling in love. And, well, what are you going to build? You're going to build the characters. You're not really going to build the world, are you? I don't really know, because I write fantasy and I don't really write any other genre. Although there's a lot of crossover. I can't really say much about this as a pantser, because I really write as I go, and then as I'm editing, I sort of fix these like customs or cultural norms or taboos or whatever. But I don't really think about this. Anyway, that is my reaction to this. I don't really think about this, but I have heard that it's good to, like, if you're not a pantser, it's good to like figure out your setting, but you have to think about it, a setting that your character is in, not particularly like the entire world, depending on how big you're going. Like, are you just saying the world is like this one small town? Or are you saying the world is an entire country? Or are you saying the world is an entire planet, or a universe, or a multiverse? Anyway, I don't have much else to add to that. Type of novel you're writing will dictate which questions to answer before you start. I feel like they're a little bit vague about this. They feel a little bit vague about this. They don't really know. I mean, you create your world as you're writing too. I mean, even if you've planned and outlined, I think people still add things to their world as they're writing. Like, if you think about a character is going to a store to buy some things, what kind of store is this? How modern is it? Do they have electricity in this world? If they do, is there a difference between the rich and the poor? And, that sort of thing will come up as you're writing the story. Anyway, we're moving on. Okay, choose your point of view. I have some big text notes on the side there. Okay. The point of view will totally depend on what you enjoy writing, the norm for your genre and target audience, and what voice fits best with the story you want to tell. Many authors will have a certain point of view that is most comfortable for them, but you also have to keep in mind what is standard practice in the industry for your type of novel. For example, romance novels are often written in first person, present tense because romance readers want to feel very close to the main character, often a woman, because those readers like to put themselves in the shoes of that character. However, epic fantasy is often written in third person, past tense, because readers may have a hard time placing themselves as the main character in a world that's so far from reality. Obviously, there are exceptions to every rule. The key with writing rules is to know them and their purpose so you can break them intentionally. In italics. Okay, so this isn't so bad, is it? This isn't so bad. Point of view would totally depend on what you enjoy writing. Exactly. When I first started writing, I used to write a lot in first person. And I think it was because that I was new to writing and I wanted to feel very close to my characters while I was writing. I guess I felt it was easier to write that way. And at some point, I think when I started writing really sort of I call it dense fantasy, but it really is like epic fantasy, high fantasy, that I started to switch to third person point of view. And I haven't gone back. I only write in third person. I mean, the only time I would write in first person, have I ever written in first person? I don't think I've written in first person in a really long time, actually. Everything I've written has been in third person. Yeah, so they say there are exceptions to every rule. Well, depends on what you like, what the reader likes. I mean, so they say epic fantasies are written in third person past tense because readers may have a hard time placing themselves as the main character in a world that's so far from reality. That is what I want to tell Shadow and Bone, because it was just, there was nothing that I could relate to. I mean, maybe it was the age of the character. But when fantasy does first person, I immediately want to say, nah, I'm not going to read that because I know that I won't be able to really connect with the character and like I can't identify with feeling like I don't have enough magical powers because I'm not living in a fantasy world. Come on. Anyway. Yeah, so point of view, I've seen a lot of newbie writers asking about what point of view should I write in. I think if you want to, you can experiment both sides. You can try first person and you can also try third person. I wouldn't do second person, unless you want to see what that's like. Second person is when you say you instead of I. It's kind of weird. I don't think I ever want to write that way, and I don't think I ever want to read that way. So, that's that for the point of view. Choose your point of view. I usually choose my point of view when I'm thinking about the character. Actually, when I come up with a character, I'm already coming up with a point of view. Like, if I ever do think about writing in a different point of view. There have been times when I have considered doing a character switch, by chapter. So it's character A is chapter 1 and character B is chapter 2 and chapter 3 is character A again, and then you go back and forth like that. I have considered writing a story like that and making it in first person, but then I think it's a fantasy, and I think it would get confusing because I get confused. If it's a non-fantasy, like a fiction mystery or thriller or something, that's fine with it being first person. I don't know why. That doesn't really bother me too much. Maybe it's because it's more grounded in the real world. So there are things about the character that I can relate to. If I can't relate to, at least I can understand why they think in that way. So a lot of middle grade fantasy is in first person, and it doesn't bother me. I think because of the age gap. Because I'm like 30 and reading middle grade fantasy, and it's kids, right? So to me, it's like I'm reading something that they're telling me. Like the kid in the story is telling me this that happened, or this is happening, that is happening. In first person, like I did this, or I'm doing this, that sort of thing. And the kid is just is telling me, and for some reason that's really, it doesn't bother me that the middle grade fantasy is in first person. It bothers me when YA fantasy is in first person, because it gets a little bit closer to my, I mean, it's not that close to my age, but I remember when I was a teenager a little more strikingly than I remember when I was like, I don't know, 11 or 12. I don't even remember what I was like at 11 or 12. So, yeah. So in my notes on the side, I wrote exceptions to every rule. Why bother then, honestly? So, okay, there was another article I read. I think it was it might have been the masterclass article. I'm not entirely sure. They say there are exceptions to every rule, or that we're giving you all these rules, but in the end, you can break them. And I'm like, well, then why bother telling us that these rules? You know? And I get what they're trying to say. They're saying that you don't have to follow these rules if you feel like you don't need them. But if you're a newbie writer, I think you need to. I don't know. So I also wrote, just read books and do what they do. You can be a copycat in the beginning. All this is too much. I honestly don't know why I wrote that. All this is too much. All of these steps are too much. That's true. Or you could just read books and do what they do. Yeah. I was just thinking about some people who don't read books, that they listen to audiobooks. They don't read books at all. You can still copy them in the beginning, copy their style in the beginning. I mean, you're not going to be selling a copy version. Of course not. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know. Putting the exceptions to every rule thing at the end of the 4th step, I think they should do that at the end of the 11th step. I mean, if they're going to say that at the end, not in the 4th step. But why did they have to do it here? They didn't have to do that here. They can do it at the end of all the steps. That would have been the place to put it if they wanted to. If they wanted to put it, or they could write a whole separate article about breaking, what it means to actually break writing rules intentionally, and some examples of how that's done. Examples, people. We need examples, people. Okay, outline your novel. All right. Okay, so this section is long, so I kind of separated it out a lot. Okay. Your novel will need direction, even if you, quote, can't write from an outline. I don't know why they do that. You still have to know where your story is going if you want to craft it in a way that's exciting. There are 2 types of writers out there, and each will have a unique outlining method: plotters and pantsers. A plotter is someone who plans out their novel with an outline before actually writing, whereas a pantser is someone who writes with seemingly no direction. They write by the seat of their pants. Are you a plotter or a pantser? Fiction authors tend to fall into one of 2 buckets when writing their books. Okay. This actually, I mentioned this in a note right here. It might be the first article I've seen to mention plotters and pantsers specifically. There have been times when I would react to an article and I would see that they might be talking about a plotter or a pantser, but they don't say plotter and pantser. I have heard, possibly, that some writing advice article people kind of don't really believe that plotters and pantsers actually exist. Like there is no such thing and it's stupid or something like that. I think that's stupid. Well, no, I don't think they're stupid. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that there are different ways of, you can call someone a world builder, you can call someone a writer, and those are also 2 different things, and it's not like they don't exist, right? I don't know where I'm going with this. if I could edit a video, I would just cut this part right out. I didn't make any sense there. Okay, so let's get back on track. About plotters and pantsers. So they get into this. They actually get into what they mean plotters about what they mean with plotters and pantsers. Why can't I not speak? So plotters and pantsers, and they've actually defined it. And this is highly, highly unusual in a writing article. I've looked at 5 other ones, and this is the first one I've seen that specifically talks about it. And that is so nice that they do that, because then at least people can figure out what kind of writer they are early on. And it's nice to do that. It's nice to know beforehand, instead of trying to just go all over the place and figure it out, you know. Okay, what did they say? Pantsers. These are writers who basically only have a few vague elements about the story in mind when they start writing, but nothing else. They may have an ending or at least a climax in mind for where they're headed. One of the most famous pantsers is Stephen King. In interviews, Stephen King has said that he often has an idea of the beginning, the premise, and a vague idea how it's all going to end. And that's all he needs to start writing his first draft. That is so validating to hear. You know, I'm a pantser, and it's so nice to hear that a famous person is also a pantser. And look at how well he's selling, you know, and how well he's getting out these stories and how complex they are. You know, it's nice to hear. It really is nice to hear. For me as a pantser, I think there are various types of pantsers. I don't know what kind of types, but there are various types, because I usually have an idea about the beginning, a vague idea of the middle, and I definitely know how I want it to end. The ending usually, it's kind of like I'm writing towards the ending, because the ending is often quite set for me. This is how I want it to end. This is where I want the character to end up. And these are the things that I want to have the character have solved by the end of the story. So, yeah. So, yeah, it's, and the middle is kind of vague. So it's like I'm writing towards the end. Like I don't have like the end actually written out or anything, but I have it in mind, and I'm always writing towards that. So what can I have happen here so that the ending will, so that it will match up with the ending? It's kind of how I write, how I pants. Okay, plotters. These are writers who need to know every major piece of their novel before they start writing. They have full, complete outlines that serve as a guide for their writing. They will know who each and every one of the characters are, what their motivations are, the chapters needed for the book, chapter sections, and in some cases, even paragraphs. Probably the most famous plotter out there is James Patterson. Okay, so I'm not a plotter, so I can't really speak on plotters. Yeah, but I know some plotters, and oh my gosh, they are so organized. I mean, if you're a plotter, I applaud you, and that's not, I should say, I applaud you, you get it? Because it's so organized, and it's like, oh my gosh. I mean, that could even, I mean, it's basically almost a book at that point. You guys have such organized minds. Sometimes I'm a little bit jealous because, wow. On the other hand, I do look at plotters and think, when are you going to start writing? When? Are you going to be outlining forever? And maybe as plotters, when you look at pantsers, it's like, how do you even figure everything out? How do you even keep everything, you know, organized in your head? How do you even do that? I don't know how I do it, but it works for me. So anyway, those are pantsers and plotters. Now, knowing if you're a plotter or pantser will dictate your entire writing process. Clearly, it's possible to be successful, whether you're a plotter or pantser. But here's the harsh reality. Whereas Stephen King and James Patterson sit on opposite extremes of the outline spectrum, most of us fall somewhere in between. Either way, you'll need some sort of structure for putting all the pieces of your novel together. Okay, so after this sentence, they offer to send you a template to your email, and I will link the article below. I always link the article below in my videos in the description. If you're interested in that, you can go to their website and download their template. I haven't downloaded it because I don't need to. Outlining isn't my thing. I'm really heavy towards pantser. I'm not somewhere in the middle. But there are people who are in the middle, and they are sometimes called plantsers. I've seen other words, but I like the word plantser because it's a mix between the word plotter and pantser. So some people are plantsers, and you could be one. I don't know. You might have to try things out. And see if you like it or if it's for you and how productive you can be with that method. So yeah, I'm really heavily on the pantser side. I tried outlining once and then I couldn't write the series. It was a series that I outlined and I couldn't write the series for like 2 years. And I thought, I really want to write this story, and I feel so stressed out by this outline. I'm just going to, you know what? I'm going to just ignore the outline. Ignore the outline completely. And I am going to see if I can just write at the seat of my pants, and I'm going to pretend that this is a National Novel Writing Month. I'm going to set myself a monthly goal of 50,000 words and just get this series done. I was able to write 4 books in 2 months. Yeah, so it's possible. What I was saying before, this girl who outlined for 10 years and then she wrote a book in 2 months. I wrote a series of 50K words each, 4-book series in 2 months. And I just completely ignored the outline. I had plotted a lot of the world and how the world works and that. I ignored a lot of that. There were some things I did keep, but a lot of things I just completely ignored. And I was able to write 4 books, 2 months. So, I mean, so I realize that. Gee, I'm a pantser, which is fine. I like being a pantser. Anyway, so I'm going back a little bit and say something. I have something to say. Yeah, so in the first part of the step, it says, even if you can't write from an outline, you still have to know where your story is going if you want to craft it in a way that's exciting. This word with exciting again. Why do they use like intriguing and excitement, exciting? It's like those are really subjective. I mean, they should say that's exciting to you. Because if you say just exciting, it sounds like are they supposed to be like exciting to readers? What is this like unnecessary pressure that you're putting onto my shoulders? So words like it's exciting, they should specifically say it's exciting to you. To sort of not put so much pressure on your shoulders. I mean, it would be good if they didn't do that. Yeah. So anyway, but this is the first article where they actually mentioned and defined pantsers and plotters, which is quite good. That is quite good. Not many writing articles. I think some writing articles actually shun the words like pantser and plotter, saying that they don't exist or whatever. They don't say it. I haven't seen anyone actually say it, but I have heard about things like that being possibly true. Possibly true. Okay. So we're moving on to 6. Write the first page. Okay, this is a weird tip. Step. Well, I guess it's a step. Yeah. We'd love to say the first page isn't all that important when writing a novel, but we all know that's not true. I don't think we'd love to say the first page isn't that. We all think that the first page is pretty important. Yes. The first page is often what helps readers decide to buy or pass on a novel. This is especially true when you publish a book on Amazon and have the look inside feature. The Amazon look inside feature acts as the same thing as a person flipping open a book to the first page in a bookstore. That is your opportunity to snag readers. Yes, it is. However, many first-time novel writers get caught up in writing the first sentence, which isn't as important as the first page in full. We found that by building the first page in a way that causes a reader to at least flip to the next page, you can snag them. Why is this? Because when a reader feels the need to keep reading, this is not italics, geez, they subconsciously see our book as a, quote, page turner, and will buy it. Okay, and this is just, yes. Next is, it's part of step 6. The best way to construct your novel's opening is by doing this. 1. Start in media res, which means in the middle, typically of action, a character's everyday or a tense situation. Show, not tell, something interesting about your world that readers don't get details about until the next page. Use strong verbs and action to appeal to a reader's emotions. This action hooks them. Hint at something that makes the reader feel sympathetic or like the main character. Well, okay. I immediately thought of a book that doesn't do the last one. Okay, so this first part about step 6, where it says, write the first page. That's true about the Amazon look inside feature. Like if you want to publish on Amazon, I often look at the look inside feature to see if I will actually like this book or not. So that is a really important part of the first page. Many first-time novelers get caught up in writing the first sentence. I don't know if it's the first sentence, maybe the first paragraph. Do some of you get caught up in the first sentence? Just the first sentence, over and over writing the first sentence? I've heard about people over and over writing the first chapter or over and over writing the first paragraph. Anyway, we found that by building the first page in a way that causes the reader at least flip, and you can snag them. Yes. How build the first page? How build first page? Tell me how build first page. And that's the next section where they give the 1, 2, 3, 4. Start in media res. I didn't even know. Is this Latin or something? Which means in the middle. Typically of action and character's everyday or tense situation. That is a good place to start. I have read books that start with explaining sort of the world, which, if done well, can be interesting. But I have seen books where it's not done really well, and it can be like, why are you telling me this? Why am I supposed to care? I don't even want to read this, and then I just don't read, right? So, but it can work, Show, not tell, something interesting about your world that readers don't get details about until the next page. Show, not tell. Yeah, and then they actually give an example of a first chapter after this, so we're going to go over that. Use strong verbs and action to appeal to a reader's emotions. This action hooks them. Hint at something that makes the reader feel sympathetic or like the main character. I was just thinking about a man called Ove? Is that his name? I don't really know how to say it. I forgot how people said it. I forgot how it's supposed to be said. I was reading it as Ove, but I think Ove. I think that's the word, a name. And the book starts out with this grumpy old man trying to buy an iPad in an electronics shop. I really did not like him at the beginning. I did not like him. But I thought, well, I like these types of sort of human interaction type of stories, and that's why I decided to get it. And it also has a cat on the cover, and I like books with cats in them, so that's kind of why I bought that book. Feel sympathetic towards the main character. I distinctly remember Shadow and Bone beginning with Alina just walking towards the fold, the dark area, the fold, and kind of just walking. I was confused what was going on. I mean, yes, it started with an action like she's walking towards the fold, and I was like, well, what the heck is the fold? But nothing about her intrigued me at all. At all. Nothing. There was nothing relatable about her in the beginning, and that immediately put me off. I'm like, oh geez, I hope she gets interesting. I really hope she gets interesting. She didn't. To me, anyway. Yeah, so hinted something that makes the reader feel sympathetic or like the main character. I mean, clearly these books didn't do it. But two different not do it's, meaning the first one, even though they didn't do that, there was other aspects of the book that intrigued me. So I bought the book and I ended up really liking the characters and enjoying them at the end. And then there was the other side where there's nothing that makes me feel sympathetic or like the main character. But the world was interesting, and I kind of wanted to know what was going on in the world and how she was going to be involved. I wasn't really interested in her particularly. But anyway, so we're going to look at this chapter 1 thing. And I wrote, yes, an example at long last, assuming this is a first draft example. And there's a reason why I call it a first draft example. I think the author of the article wrote this. As an example. We don't really get examples like this. We really don't. In writing articles, it's just, I was surprised to see this, really. We really don't get these kinds of examples. A lot of writing articles just give big advice and just leave it at that. And just hope the writer just automatically knows what to do. So in this chapter 1, you can go to the website and actually read this for yourself. I'm not going to go through this. They go, yes, okay, they go through it. So, yes. Yeah, so this sort of red circle that I have. Okay, so, this chapter 1 starts out with, he contemplated stealing it. I have a pet peeve when a story starts out with an ambiguous pronoun. They, he, she, whatever, in the beginning. I'd rather know the name of the main character from the very, very beginning. I do that in all my books. The first sentence has the main character's name in it somehow. If not starting with it, it's in there somehow. And it's so that the reader knows exactly whose story this is going to be about. Not some vague he. Just say, what is this name? Royan? Okay. Royan contemplated stealing it, not he contemplated stealing it. Royan contemplated stealing it, but given the punishment of theft in these parts, he needed a better look to make sure it'd be worth it, at least. So, just start with a name, please. Please. That is just my pet peeve. It's not like something that if you want to do it this way, you can, but it's just my pet. I just want to know who the main character's name is from the beginning, please. Okay. So, we get on with this thing. Okay. Ryan knelt slowly, turning to the side in search of someone draped in dust-colored linens, the robes. The nearest was down the riverbank, towering over a young girl, maybe 12 years. But the words too far to hear, but the bent hook of the shaking girl's body said enough. The bent hook of the shaking girl's body said enough. I have no idea what's going on here. No idea what's going on here. I'm not even intrigued. He looked out over the rush of brown river first. Down in his own hands were the days digging in the rough sands had carved new scrapes over old scars. I mean, I like that sentence. A wooden board beneath a new day's butchering knife. Not sure what they're trying to say there. I feel like I know what they're trying to get at, but that's a little bit too. Well, now I'm thinking because now I'm thinking about a butchering knife. I'm thinking about a butchering knife. I'm thinking about how his hands look, and then suddenly it said she'd be okay. Who is she? Is this a mistake? It should have been he. She'd be okay. Eventually, the skin will heal over. So we were talking about scars on the hands, and then now it says she'd be okay. And I'm like, who is she? Is it like a mistake? It should have been he'd be okay. This is about Royan. I'm not entirely sure. Eventually, the skin would heal over and over. Smooth scars would replace the spiral texture of each finger. Soon she just wouldn't feel them anymore. I think this is supposed to be he. I was so confused reading this example. Another rope stood further down the bank to Royan's other side to this, whatever, over the river, standing tall behind her. Who is her? Who is he? Who is she? Who is they? I have no idea what's going on here. Obviously, this is a first draft example. I mean, they should have specifically said that this is a first draft example, a very rough cut, or something like that, not like a polished piece. I think people should know that. So that they read this and is like, oh, why is this person who writes like this is giving me advice? You know, you should say that this is a first draft and this is like a raw look at a first draft or something like that, if it actually is a first draft. So they do some sort of self-analysis after this first draft, which is quite interesting. I don't really see writing articles doing that. I think more writing articles should give a lot more examples, even if that means make the article long. It's fine. We need examples. It's important. Okay, so they say this first page works well because we've established intrigue with the item Rowan has found. Rowan has found, he contemplated stealing it. Well, we never know what it is. But given the punishment set, he needed a better look to make sure it'd be worth it at least. To make sure the thing they should say what the thing was, to make sure it'd be worth it at least. To make sure the thing. At least if you're going to give an example of this first page that's supposed to be very interesting and make it into a page turner, you need to at least, if you're going to give an example, you need to at least put in a little bit more effort into the editing, I think. Even if it is supposed to be like a raw first draft, I think you should do a little bit better if you're going to give an example like this. Like if I would give like a rough first draft example here. I would put a little bit more effort and make sure that what I'm actually saying for people to do, that I'm actually doing it in my example. To make sure it'd be worth it, at least I think they should say to make sure it'd be worth taking this thing. This thing should be a little bit clearer if they want to give this as an example. You know what I mean? Second, we've established sympathy by showcasing injury in 2 ways. 2 ways. Where? Tell me exactly where. The scar and the bent over girl. I don't really know what's going on with this bent over girl. I don't know what they mean by that. Is it because I just don't understand what the bent hook of the shaken girl's body said in it? I don't even know. You know, if this bent hook of the girl said enough, if this situation here is somehow a tense situation, I should be getting that, but I'm not getting it. And he's looking at, Roy is apparently looking at this girl, and now he's looking down at his hands, and oh, these hands with these scars that will heal over and over, and that would be fine. And I don't feel them anymore. So he's not actually worried about the girl? He's not? Or is he? Because I'm not worried about the girl anymore. What injuries are we talking about? What 2 ways injuries? Do they mean like a healing of the heart kind of situation? Are they trying to say that? I have no idea. Do I feel sympathy for this character? We've established something. I don't think you have. I really don't. I don't think you have. I don't feel don't know. This is the best example. I mean, if you wanted to give a good example, why don't you give the Hunger Games an example? You don't have to paste the full chapter. I don't think you can do that. You can give like short little paragraphs or something. I don't know, but I don't know if this was a very good example. Number 4, requiring. I don't know why I have so much trouble saying that word. We're requiring the reader turn the page to actually learn more about the item, the robes, and more. I don't know. I don't feel. I don't really know. Am I being too harsh? I don't know. 5, we've created intrigue for the world by introducing 2 suns, which is out of the ordinary. Polished stone glowing in the midday suns. At the very end, it says. Yeah. I'm more interested in the Desjuan halls, what that is. I want to know polished stone glowing in the midday suns. I want to know what that looks like up close. That's the only thing for me. I mean, that's the kind of things that I like, I guess. Glowing in the midday suns. Yeah, maybe. Maybe there could have been a little bit more, at least even a little bit of a over exaggerated first draft where there's a little bit more information than maybe that there should be in this first draft example, just to show exactly what they mean when they're giving this advice. I would have liked to see that. Okay, number 7, the setup when writing a novel. I don't know what they mean by setup. Do they mean setting, the first page, the first few paragraphs? I was just so confused when I saw this step name. This is where you make your story promise and write an introduction that pulls readers in. Here's a solid resource for how to start a story if you need a few more tips. You tell your reader what kind of story it will be, a comedy, drama, mystery, fantasy, sci-fi, and you give a few clues as to what they can expect. Whatever you said in these initial pages must be followed to the end of your story. A stone-cold drama cannot turn into a slapstick comedy by the end of the story. That doesn't mean a stone-cold drama can't have humor in it. It just means that you can, I think they mean can't, suddenly pivot and become an Adam Sandler movie. Also, during the setup, we learn a little bit about the characters, their everyday lives, their challenges, the world they live in. We get a sense of where the story is heading. Okay, that's the end of that tip. Okay. I think tip 6 and 7 are supposed to be like 1. It should be 1, I think. Maybe they could have had like just 10 steps, put 6 and 7 together, because writing the first page is setting up the story or established setting. Yeah, they say here's a solid resource for how to start a story if you need a few more tips, and they have a link in the how to start a story part. I might take a look at that. I don't know if it's going to bring me to another self-publishing school article or not. We'll see. Tell your reader what kind of story it will be. Yeah, so they're kind of repeating themselves in step 7 with step 6. I mean, they're talking exactly about what to do in the first page. Right? I think they are. Yeah, so their everyday lives and challenges in the world they live in, the characters, yeah. So that's a lot of things to try to establish in the beginning, but it's really necessary, especially if it's a fantasy and not in our world, not in any world that anyone's familiar with. You really want to make sure you get everything down in like the first page, which is hard. It's really, really hard. And currently I'm sort of editing a first chapter of my story, and it's really hard to fit those things in without dumping info on the reader. It's really hard, Okay, step 8. I really don't have much to say about step 7. I think 6 and 7 should be together. That's all. Okay, the inciting incident. The inciting incident is the moment in your story when your hero's life changes forever. It is the no going back moment where nothing that happens afterwards will return your hero's world back to normal. Katniss volunteers. Neo takes the red pill. Dorothy lands in Oz. The aliens are here. And I wrote, the writer of this article sounds passionate here. Okay. As soon as your inciting incident happens, your story should be full throttle towards the climax. The most common mistake first-time authors make is that their inciting incident is reversible. That means that something could happen that would return the hero's life back to normal. No, no, no. Your inciting incident should as final as the severing of a limb. I think they missed a B in here. Your inciting incident should be as final as the severing of a limb or a death of a loved one. Nothing should be able to reverse the effects of your inciting incident has on your hero. Okay. Yes, and then they go on and give an example. Yes, with these examples. Why didn't you do these in the first few steps? You should have done this also in the first few steps, I think. Katniss volunteers in the Hunger Games. I told you. See, I told you, people. Hunger Games comes out a lot in this article. I think R.E. Vance likes the Hunger Games. Katniss volunteers in the Hunger Games. The inciting incident is irreversible because, quite literally, soldiers grab Katniss, whisk her away from her world and into the world of the games. There is no escape. And even if she could get away, she would be hunted by the Capitol for the rest of her life. With those two simple words, I volunteer, her life has changed forever. I volunteer as tribute. I think that's what she said. Is that the same thing she said in the book? I don't know. I don't remember. Note, there is an exception to this rule when it comes to romances. With romances, the inciting incident is almost always when the two lovebirds meet. Parentheses, not always, but for the vast majority of romances, this is the case. With romances, try to create an inciting incident that simultaneously shows how perfect these two people are for each other while setting up the numerous reasons why they can't be together. Okay. Yes, all right. The inciting incident is some word I hear a lot. I think it comes from screenplay. I'm not entirely sure, but there's like a 4-act structure in storytelling or 3-act structure. I can't really remember which one, but there's something called the inciting incident. This is like the thing that changes your character's life forever. As we saw in this example, Katniss' life changes forever when she says, I volunteer as tribute in place of her little sister, Prim. I think that was the name, yeah. So that is a change, an inciting incident. Yeah. Nothing should be able to reverse the effects of your inciting incident has on your hero. Yes. There should be no way in that they can go back. No going back. There is no going back. So there is a story, I immediately thought of my own story, actually, where it's a portal fantasy, and the girl goes to a portal and ends up in a strange world called Underland. And the problem is she can't go back home. There's no way that she can go back home on her own. And the people that are supposed to be helping her want her to do something for them, and then they will help her get back home, but she has to do this thing for them. Otherwise, there's no way that she can get back home on her own. There's absolutely no way. I guess I've sort of never realized that all my sort of inciting incidents are irreversible, but it really is the thing that propels the story, the actual story. You know, it's the thing that says, okay, this is where the story starts. You know, another example that they gave here is Dorothy lands in Oz. I mean, this is where the main story starts. It's not where Dorothy is afraid of this lady on the bicycle taking her dog. That's not where it is. The story is about Dorothy in Oz. That is where the story is. And so the inciting incident is like the beginning of the story. There was this book, actually. Let me talk about another thing. Well, actually, no. I was just thinking about another story that was a portal fantasy that I read a long time ago on Wattpad. It was a long, long time ago. I think it was Wattpad. About when I first joined, and I thought it was a really good story. But as I was thinking about it, I was thinking, oh, maybe it's a good example. But as I was thinking, I don't think it is a good example because I think the characters were able to go back through the portal. But actually, no. Actually, I think, yes, they were able to go back through the portal. But the thing is that once they went into the portal, somehow the magic affected them in some way. So they weren't the same person as they were when they came out. And somehow their magic had been activated once they went into the portal. So then they weren't even really human anymore when they came back out. So it's kind of, I guess, irreversible. Kind of irreversible. But anyway, the exciting incident, as I keep saying, is where actually the story actually starts. And so that's why when they get this example of Katniss volunteers and her life changes forever, that is irreversible. It's also where her story starts. It's where her life just changes forever. And that's really what you want to do to your portal characters. You want to change their life forever. You don't want them to go back to how it was before. You really don't. You have to really force this. They only give example of a fantasy and a romance. They don't give examples here of like a mystery or a thriller. I'm suspecting that for like a mystery, or like at least for like a murder mystery, the inciting incident would be the actual murder. Or for like a thriller, like what I can think of, like I watch like horror movies sometimes, and what I can think is like a inciting incident in a horror movie is when like this group of teenagers get to a cabin and they experience their first paranormal incident, and then they can't get home because their car is broken or something like that. I mean, that's a very stereotypical type of cabin horror, but yeah, something like that. And then they can't get home. There's no way to get home, so the only thing to do is just to fight this evil, and that's when their life has changed forever. You know what I mean? Yeah. So they mention romances here in this example. An inciting incident that simultaneously shows how perfect these two people are for each other, while setting up the numerous reasons why they can't be together. I don't really know how romances work, actually. I mean, what I mean is romance novels. I don't know why they added this bit about romance here. I have a feeling that the author of this article wrote it just fantasy first, and then someone said, well, actually, romance is a little bit different. And they're like, okay, well, then I'll add a bit about romance. That's what it feels like to me. I mean, why suddenly talk about romances? What about other, like, literary fiction type of books? What about those? What is an inciting incident for that? Maybe a genre by genre example, or at least a few other genre examples would be very nice to have in here. Okay, the next tip is called the first slap. When I first read this step 9, the first slap, I had no idea what they were talking about. Are you talking about slapping people across the face? No, I hope not. That is violence. So, now we are away to the races for writing a novel. There's an exclamation point there. I'm not that excited. Over the next few chapters, your characters should be making a series of gains and losses where the aggregate result is that their situation is slightly better than what it was at the moment of the inciting incident. The reason why we need this upward trajectory is because we are setting up the reader for the first slap. The first slap is the moment when everything that our hero has gained is lost in a fell swoop. Your hero is brought down to 0. In other words, all gains are lost and the hero's situation has never been bleaker. Yeah, I get what they're saying here. Okay, the first slap example. See, we have another example. Why didn't you do these in the first 2 steps? Please do this in the first 2 steps. In the Hunger Games, Katniss's world is brought down to 0 when she actually enters the games. Between the inciting incident on the first slap, do you mean and the first slap? Katniss has made several gains, garnering the attention of the capital and making some friends along the way. But none of that matters the moment she enters the games. And what a moment it is. Okay. So this first slap, I was like, what are we slapping? What are we slapping? Like, seriously. So we're slapping the character down. Basically, it's the first moment where, like, everything goes down. Everything goes down. It's just like, it's just horrible. So, in my story, I think, for the story that I gave an example of, the character's first slap, I mean, in terms of what they're saying, would be when she realizes that she has to figure out which crazy person to trust if she wants to get home. And she's just like stuck. So she gets captured by one of the queens. I won't say which. This book may be coming out next year. It's called Between Roses. I might talk about it in a different video. Who knows? She gets captured by one of the queens in a dungeon. And she's like, and the queen is going to, potentially kill her in order to extract some powers from her. And, main character Erin doesn't know, about this power. She doesn't even feel it. She doesn't even know what's going on. And she's just so confused and scared. And this is the first time in the story, one of the first times, that she actually feels just so vulnerable and alone and breaks down. So that's one of the, I guess it would be called the first slap. Actually, there's a few slaps that happen to Erin. I don't know if that would be considered, because there's one moment where she realizes that before she's captured, she realizes that, oh my gosh, this is not a dream. I am stuck here. And then she kind of goes into victim mode and kind of cries her eyes out. So that could be the first slap. I don't really know. Anyway, but she is brought down to 0. I don't know if I would say all gains are lost, but she definitely loses, like, her normal life. Like, she felt like she had everything in her normal life, but then now in this other world that it doesn't matter what she had. It doesn't matter what she had in her normal world, because this world is entirely different. So she's like, oh, woe is me. So that could be the first slap, maybe. I don't know. The example they gave is, I kind of vaguely remember. So I read the first book of the Hunger Games, and it wasn't really my cup of tea. I don't know. I just couldn't get into the long monologue moments of the character when she's alone in the forest in the games. I distinctly remember the movies because then I resorted to the movies because I didn't find the books very interesting. But I remember, there was like some big training thing, and the characters are getting to know each other and all that. And then in the games, they now have to kind of kill each other. So that's all kinds of things. I guess that's the first slap. Does there always have to be a first slap? Can there not be a first slap? Does there always have to be a first slap? Can it just be one big slap? I don't know. They don't say. Okay, and we have the second slap. So we're slapping one cheek and we're slapping the other cheek. Don't do that. That's violence. So, your hero has rose to the challenge. They have successfully thwarted the big evil that has been thrusted upon them by the first slap, and she is doing well. She, who? I guess we're talking about Katniss. Now it is time to bring her back to 0 again. The second slap should be as harsh, if not harsher than the first slap. This is the moment when the reader should be looking at your book and thinking, wow, this author is being diabolical, villain, mean. All right. In the second slap, we are setting up for the climax, which means that the hero needs to have an out. In other words, there should be some semblance of hope. Second slap example. In the Hunger Games, the second slap is when the game masters announce that 2 tributes can survive the games should they both be from the same district. Katniss goes looking for Peeta, only to find him mortally wounded. He is bleeding to death and won't survive the next few hours, let alone the rest of the games. We know enough about Katniss to realize that Peeta is dying in the worst thing that could happen. I know nothing about Katniss to realize that Peeta dying is the worst thing that could happen to her besides her own death. But there is hope. An announcement is made that there is something at the cornucopia that the tributes need, and Katniss just knows that there is medicine there for Peeta. Okay. Swole. This is the second slap. I guess in my story, the second slap is like, there is this moment where Aaron and another character see a prophecy being foretold that this world is going to be destroyed if the characters don't get their act together, basically. So now it's like, well, devastation, because is that the second slap for her? I'm not really entirely sure if I have a second slap or I just have a slap. So, well, actually, there is, I guess, a second slap quite way down towards the story where it's like they don't really know how to fight this evil. Aaron is afraid to go under a coma because that's the only way that they think that she can give her powers to someone and also be able to go home without being there in the danger. But she doesn't know how to use the powers, and she's also she has a phobia of comas. Is that the second slap that she feels like she has to? I have no idea. What do they mean by the second slap? Is this really a second slap? Maybe? I guess? Could, you know, I don't know why they're separating the devastating moment, the sort of downfall of the characters, into two miniature sections here. Maybe because they analyzed the Hunger Games for this article. But there can be this sort of slow downfall, and all these little slaps could happen, I think. All these little slaps can happen. And in my story, it would be like, well, Erin gets stuck in this crazy world. She can't go home on her own. Then she gets captured by one of the queens. And then she has to face her fear of comas, which doesn't, well, yeah, she has to face her fear of comas. And then she is captured by a queen again. And then it just seems very, very bleak because everyone around her that was supposed to be helpful is also down in the dumps, and there seems like there's no hope because the evil is taking over the world, and the world might be destroyed because of that. So she goes through these many slaps. I don't think there's just a first and second slap. There's just many of them. It just keeps going down, down, down until the second slap. I think what they mean is by like it's not the climax, but it's like the sort of big downfall of the character, and it's their hardest challenge yet, their hardest challenge ever, which they rise to, and it leads to the big climax. So it's like the boss fight. You know what I mean? Like if you're playing a game and you're fighting monsters, you go through all these sort of lower tier monsters, right? And then you get to the big boss monster, and the big boss monster and all those little monsters that were just as difficult to fight. Those are sort of these slaps that they're talking about. And so then you get to the big monster, and the big monster is like the big boss, and that is like the sort of climax moment. And then once you overcome that is when the story starts going towards the end, right? I really don't know what they mean by these second slaps. What the heck are they talking about? What are we slapping? Doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't make sense to me. I'm sorry. Okay, well, we get to the climax. Maybe I was right about those second slaps, those little slaps. It's not first slap and second slap. It's many slaps, okay? They should just call it, I don't know why. Why is 9 and 10 about slaps. I don't really get what that is, because how is that a step? What are you stepping? What do you want? What are you telling us to do in this step? They're not telling us to do anything. They're not telling us to do a single thing. They're just going through the story structure. These aren't 11 essential steps for writing a novel. These are just the parts of the story structure. Maybe it should be a different article. I don't know. So we're at the climax. This is the last step. The last step, guys. We've made it this far. You have come to the goal. Monopoly, collect 200. You're welcome. The roller coaster that you've put your reader on is almost over. The reader has gone from an engaging setup where they get to learn about your characters and world to the inciting incident where everything is turned on its head. Then they are subjected to the first and second slaps. Okay, we're slapping cheeks now. Don't do that. Where you embrace your inner sadomasochist. Seriously? In order to punish your hero and give the readers the thrills they so richly deserve. You embrace your inner sadomasochist. I didn't realize it said that here. I really am. When I said in the beginning of the video that I screenshot these and I don't really read them, I really mean that I don't really. I just first realized that they say sadomasochist. Oh my gosh, they do say that. Well, okay. Now it is time to wrap it all up with the climax and the story. There is only one rule to the climax, a rule that must be adhered to no matter what genre you're writing. Make it amazing! The climax should be the moment where your reader puts down the book and goes, holy that was awesome. So, make it amazing. Yeah, no pressure there. No pressure there. It's also very subjective to make it amazing, but I guess if it's amazing to you, it must be amazing to some other people. Maybe that's what they mean. They should make that clear. Okay, so this is about the climax. Novel climax example, The Hunger Games, because obviously we wrote this article analyzing the Hunger Games. The climax in the Hunger Games is the final confrontation between Katniss and the remaining tributes, as well as the monsters that the game masters send after her. It is wrought with danger and excitement, and what makes the climax truly kick-ass is the poisonous berries at the end. Didn't you just spoiled... If you don't know what I'm talking about, pick up a copy of Hunger Games today and read it. You'll immediately get why this thing is so amazing. There you have it. Writing a novel is made much easier with your 5 key milestones. What? You talk about 11 steps, and now you're saying 5 key milestones. I have no idea what you're talking about. Oh my gosh. Okay. This method is particularly effective for first-time authors who are still finding their writing feet, or should I say, typing fingers. All right, I see you're trying to be clever. And is an awesome resource that experienced writers can rely on time and again when planning their stories. Okay? I have a note here. I get it, I got it, you love the Hunger Games, that's fine. I just want more examples, maybe not just the first book. Because what they're talking about here is the first book, the things that happen in the first book. It's a series, like 3 books and there's like a 4th one. Maybe look at the entire series or maybe even other genres. Examples are good, but maybe 2 or 3 more would have been better. 2 or 3 examples would have been better. So not just give me 1 example, but give 2 or 3 examples. The article being long is fine. It's fine. If people want to know how to write a story, they will appreciate the many examples. They will enjoy it. They will find it super helpful. You can be long. It's fine. And if you want to make every single step into a separate article, you can do that too. If you don't want it to be too long, you can put the examples over there. Anyway. Yeah, the point is this poisonous berries at the end. When I read the book, I was like, okay, all right. I see. And when I watched the movie, it was like, you know, I don't know. That's my opinion about the Hunger Games, but I did like the movies overall. I mean, who doesn't like a good rebellion? Anyway. I can't even believe they said embrace your inner sadomasochist, please. What the heck is that? What are you talking about? Jeez. Okay, well, the things that I have to say, I already kind of really said it as I was reading it. This is the step. You're talking about steps. And now you're talking about story structure. It's like you've deviated from talking about story structure, talking about steps to write a story, like write the first page, do this, do that. First step, second step, climb it. It's like, and we already went off the rails when you started talking about, okay, you started talking about the setup. Okay, we need a setting. Yes, the thing, you write a setting, and this is how you write a setting. They don't really specifically say that. They don't say how you write a setting. They don't say anything about establishing the vibes of the book, depending on your genre. They don't say anything about that, which they should. I struggled with that. And then suddenly, step 8 is just part of a story structure inciting incident. It's not even a step. It's not like write an inciting incident. That's what they should have written as that step. It's explaining inciting incident, explain what it is, and how to write it, maybe. I don't know. They give an example, but I don't know. Inciting incident wasn't too bad, actually. It's just the first step and second step that were just kind of, I don't know. Look, R.E. Vance, I have no ill will against you, but this article could be rewritten. This article could be rewritten a little bit better. I don't know what you mean by first slap and second slap. I think it's just one big slap, or many little ones. Explain a little bit more what you mean about this, because the character will face many challenges, especially if it's fantasy. This character is going to be facing many challenges. Not just fantasy, but especially this kind of rebellious dystopian type of book. The character is a rebellion. They are going to be facing many challenges. It's like a given thing. It's like a thing. It's a thing that happens. It's a happening thing. What I want to say is that this doesn't make sense. Is the way it is. Article is almost good. It's almost good. I mean, it's like the best I've seen so far with these examples, but it's confusing. And the climax of the story, it doesn't have to be, look, they're really analyzing. They should have said, analyzing the Hunger Games should have been the title of this article, seriously, because at the moment where it's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I mean, not all books end like that. I mean, I read A Man Called Ove, and the ending is a sob moment. It's like a quiet little sob moment, and it's so warm and fuzzy and cozy, and it was so good. I don't think it was like, oh my god, that was awesome. That's not the kind of response I had after reading that book. That's not the kind of response I had after reading The Hunger Games either. I mean, obviously we have different tastes, you and me, our events. But that was the kind of, is there any book that I felt like, oh my god, that was awesome. I don't really have a response like that to a book. Usually it's like, oh, oh my gosh, that is the twist at the end. I cannot believe that happened. You know, that's usually what, I don't know why I said it in that kind of accent, but that is usually the kind of response that I get out of a book. So yeah, maybe we have different tastes in books or something, but that shouldn't be an issue when reading like an article like this or writing an article like this. Those sort of things should be issues. Okay, the poisonous berries at the end. What? Just I don't know. And then they talk about 5 key milestones. What are you talking about? This article needs to be rewritten. I swear, it needs to be rewritten. You talk about 11 essential steps, and then you mention 5 key milestones. We were not talking about 5 key milestones. Oh my gosh, did anyone proofread this article before it went public? They should have. They really should have. If they haven't, they should have. Or rewrite this article. People update articles all the time, and they say, and then in the end, and then they say this article has been updated on this date. Do that. They can do that. It's fine. You can do it. It's fine. I'm making all these wild hand gestures. You have to do that. Okay. So then they have these Q&A at the end. I thought that was kind of nice to have a Q&A. You don't see articles doing this at the end of their page at all, and this one does. I really appreciate that because newbie writers have a lot of questions. How do you plan a novel? I've seen that question. Obviously, they've asked their readers or their subscribers or whatever. How do you plan a novel? Planning your novel involves coming up with your plot, character development, knowing your audience, and outlining your book. Coming up with your plot involves knowing which genre you want to write, or even utilizing a list of writing prompts to get your thoughts moving. Character development is one of the most vital parts of your novel. Take the time to know your characters and friends well before, again with these italics, you start writing in order to better plot your novel to fit how they act. Okay? And also the world at the same time, I would hope. I would hope that you would do that. Yes. Your audience will dictate the type of content in your plot. Yeah. You can always plot first and then decide if you'll be writing young adult, new adult, adult, or even middle grade. Just make sure you categorize your novel correctly in order to reach the right audience. Yes, that is important. Once you know the above, you're ready to outline your novel. First, however, you have to figure out if you're a pantser plotter or somewhere in between before you can outline your book. I don't think you need to do that. Just start. Just try one or the other. Try one or the other, and if it doesn't feel right, you can try the other one, and then you can try to figure out something in the middle. Yeah. So I don't have anything. I don't have anything much to say about that because it's nice. It's a nice little thing. I mean, nothing particularly. It's good. It's just the last one is a little bit Yeah, that's all I have to say. Okay. What should I write a novel about? Okay, I've seen this question of newbies asking this a lot too. So obviously they're listening to their readers. You should write a novel about any idea or theme that excites or inspires you. If you're stuck for inspiration, consider using a writer prompt to give you an initial story seed your full novel can eventually bloom from. Okay, writing prompts can be good. They can also be kind of limiting sometimes. I found, at least when I started writing, I was like, I don't know what to do with this prompt. What the heck is this prompt? I don't even know. I don't feel like none of them inspire me. So I have some tips for how to get inspiration. And it's not in this article, which is surprising, actually, to not see it in this article. But I have some tips for inspiration. I could give those tips. Would you want inspiration tips? How to get where to get inspiration? There are so many ways to get inspiration. I could do something like that if you guys would be interested. Let me know down below. Okay. Many writers take inspiration for their novel from their own lives. Is there an event you've lived through that makes for a compelling story? How about a memorable person you've known that you could fictionalize using literary techniques? Okay. Yeah, I have problems with that. I have problems with that. You can also take an emotional truth you experience and apply it to a different context. Even if the situation every now differs from your life, the emotional authenticity will shine through. You can also let your imagination run riot and see where it takes you. Picture an entirely different world from ours. Go crazy brainstorming. What if X happened to Y person scenarios? Right from your own experience. I mean, yes, it's good, but if you have never experienced falling into a fantasy world, if they're talking about fiction, non-fantasy fiction, maybe yes, that is helpful. But the thing that they mentioned when it says you can also take an emotional truth you experience and apply it to a different context, this is pretty good. Yes, there are some characters in which I share if their idea about how I don't know, what they think about government, something like that. Sometimes I reflect my own thoughts into them, and it makes them feel more real. In the article, it says the emotional authenticity will shine through, and that's definitely, I think, the case, and also makes it easier to write, too, because then you know exactly what you want to say, because you yourself have thought about these things a lot. So you can easily write your character that way. You can also let your imagination run right and see where it takes you. Yeah, you could do that. But for people who can't do that, I do have some tips for how to be inspired. So maybe that is another series, huh? Inspiration? What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Okay, how many words should be in a novel? Oh, do we have to go over this? The interesting thing is, this is some good information. Yeah. But I don't see the Hunger Games. It's so funny. Like they talk about the Hunger Games so much in this novel, and it's like just this section, the Hunger Games does not make an appearance. So yeah, I have seen different, at least like 10 years ago, this information was a little bit different about the length of length of a novella and novel. So yeah. Anyway, I have also heard that if you're writing your debut novel, you would probably not write 100,000 word novel, but a 60 to 90K novel, so that it would be easy for people to like pick up, and like they don't want to risk their money on a debut novel that is going to be a big thick book. Sometimes they do, but maybe if you're like self-publishing, I've heard that it's good to be a little bit more digestible, so to speak. Yeah. And yeah, in the end of this article, it says you want to make sure your novel is in the ballpark word count for your genre and target audience. But just remember that you can easily go over or under depending on how well the story is crafted. Yeah, so if you need such and such amount of words to tell such and such a story, then use those words. Then have those words. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, I don't have much to say about words should be in a novel. I mean, I don't really have an opinion on that. That's like fact kind of stuff. Most articles will say the same thing. Probably. Anyway, if you want, this information, I mean, right now I'm sort of talking because, so it's on the, it'll be on the screen, but, if you want to look for it yourself, of course, I'm going to have the link to this article in the description. Okay, how do I get started writing a novel? We kind of just went through that with the 11 essential steps, I think, didn't we? Getting started with novel writing depends entirely on you and your situation. If you already have an idea in mind, you can start by outlining your plot or jumping straight in if you're more of the pantser school of thought. If you don't have an idea, you could aim to come up with as many as possible using some of the techniques you've read here. Coming up with a large number of novel ideas. Novel ideas? Do they mean by new ideas, or do they mean like novel ideas, like the novel, like story ideas? Gives you a good chance of finding something you love and want to pursue further. You can also consider setting out a project plan for your novel. How many writing sessions will you need? When will you schedule them for? No matter how you go about starting your novel, the important thing is to build momentum and a sense of excitement to propel you forward. I mean, this is kind of general advice, won't you think? You think this is general advice. I think this is general advice. Getting started with novel writing depends entirely on your situation. True. I have nothing to add there. If you already have an idea in mind, you can start by outlining your plot. Jumping straight in if you're more of the pantser school. Okay, so they're saying like plot or pantser, pick and choose. I would also say experiment. Like I tried outlining. It didn't work out for me in the end, but that helped me realize that I'm a pantser at heart. So that's a good thing, right? You can try that. Maybe you try pantsing and it's like, it's not going anywhere. And you do outlines like, oh my gosh, I've written a book in a month. It could be something like that. So you just experiment. It's fine to experiment. You got nothing to lose. Okay. If you don't have an idea, you could aim to come up with something. What do you mean you could aim to come up with something? Either you come up with something if you don't come up with something. Aim to come up with something. Many as possible. Using the settings you read here, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Large number of novel ideas gives you a good chance to find something. Yeah. So I've done this thing where I would just have an idea and I would just write the sort of idea I had. So it won't be even like a story. It'll be like a short little paragraph about like a guy goes, a man in a Victorian mystery foggy setting goes to a dock and sees a ghost ship. And from that ship, he finds a missing woman that's been lost for years. I don't know. Something like that. And then I just write that down. And then I think of another thing like, a kind of story that I would like to write. Maybe something with stars. Like maybe there is a girl who goes to the stars and finds out that her parents are gods. And she has to save the world somehow. It can be even something vague like that. And you just make a little list. I used to do that. I don't really do that much now because I have a few worlds that I can take characters out of and work on. But I used to do that. Just have a list. And I would just, sometimes when I feel like, I want something to write. And I would go through that list and find the one that looked most intriguing to me and kind of expand it, So the guy finds a missing woman on a ghost ship, but how does he know her? Why is he on this ghost ship? Like, what is his relationship to this woman? How did he end up here? Is he alive? Is he dead? Is he a ghost? We don't know, that kind of thing. And just expand it and just ask all the questions to yourself, all the questions, and then you try to answer all of them in the story. That's what I would do. They don't give any examples of doing that. Maybe they have another article on this. I don't know. Yeah, and the important thing is to build momentum. That is important. And a sense of excitement to propel you forward. Oh, yeah, very good point. Very good point, Mr. R.E. Vance. I know it's a guy because I saw his picture. I think it's a guy. I don't want to misgender people. I think it's a guy. How do I choose a point of view in writing a novel? Okay, it can be tricky to know which point of view to choose in writing a novel, especially if it's your first time. Yes, the most common choice are first person and third person. Most published novels are written in the third person. You can read about the different points of view here. They give a link to an article and decide which is the best fit for the novel you want to write. You can also just experiment. I would just experiment writing the book in first person and then writing it in third person. I have a list of not a list, but sort of like one-page short stories in which the character is written in first person, but then when I actually expanded them into a longer, I didn't finish it, but a longer length story, then I changed it to third person. I'm like, but maybe I like it at first person after all. So, you can experiment. But don't go on too long before you want to change it because it's really hard to change everything back from first person to third person and vice versa because then everything gets mixed up. Anyway, should I edit my novel as I write? It's often a bad idea to edit your novel as you write. Doing so results in a loss of momentum and flow that inhibits your progress towards a complete first draft. If you self-edit on the fly, you often end up second-guessing yourself and losing that delicious sensation of being self-played by the story. That's what's going on with me right now. Self-editing my story is just, I keep ending up right back at the first chapter. I just cannot move forward. It's such a struggle. I've been writing for over 10 years. I still struggle with this, okay? It's not just a newbie thing. Okay, are there books on how to write a novel? Yes, there are a large number of books on novel writing. Some of the best out there include On Writing by Stephen King, How to Write Best-Selling Fiction by Dean Koontz, Writing the Breakout Novel by Donald Mass. I have heard mixed reviews about Stephen King's On Writing. No shade towards Stephen King or anything like that, but I've heard mixed reviews about this one. I've heard that a book called Save the Cat by Blake Snyder, which is a book for screenwriting, is a good book. Many writers have said it's a good book, even though it's for screenwriting, helps you figure out the story structure, I guess. Personally, I don't find books about writing to be helpful. If I have a question, like I come upon a part in my story where I'm like, how exactly do you show a climax in the best possible way? So I look up how to write climaxes for novels. And then I just go from there. I don't have time to be reading a book. If I'm going to be reading a book about writing, I'd rather be writing. That's kind of my idea. So, that's the end. I don't know how long this video has been. I have no idea what time it is. It's probably very, very late. It might be a really long video, but if you've watched this far, congratulations. You've made it to the end. Yay! We figured out how to write a novel in 11 essential steps. Have we? Or is it actually the 5 key milestones? I have no idea what that was about. I think this is probably the best article so far because it gives examples. And it talks about pantsers versus plotters. That was very nice because not many articles actually talk about those differences. And so newbie writers have no idea what they're doing and they get confused and lost. The first 2 steps didn't have examples, which I think they should. The first 2 or 3 steps, I think it was, actually. And I have no idea what they mean by the first slap and the second slap. That was kind of weird. This in the first draft, first chapter, first page example was kind of odd. If you're going to give an example, you need to do the best job possible, even if it's not a complete first draft. Like you can say that this is a third draft. It's just an example. It might not be very good. You know, you can say things like that in an article. You can be honest, and people will appreciate that. And then people will be like, oh, so this is what it looks like. This is what someone else's first draft actually looks like. I mean, I thought that was really good that they included that, but they could have done a better job at it, I think. But anyway, my rating, I guess if I would give a rating to this article, like 1 out of 5 or something like that, or 5 and 1. Anyway, I would give it like a 4. I think it's pretty good. It's pretty good. It can be rewritten and it could be much better. If it answers to, you know, some of the things that I pointed out. So it could be much better. So anyway, we got to the end. I do sporadic uploads. You can subscribe. Let's see if that lights up. Does the thing light up when I say subscribe? Like every time I say the word subscribe, I want to know that. Let me know if you want to see like a video of how I get inspired to write. I was also going to make a video about National Novel Writing Month and how I tackle it, which I'm actually doing it right now. I might not be, I don't know when you're going to see this video, but at least in November, I'm going to be doing it. I often do it anyway, so I could give some tips about that if you want to see that. I was also thinking I'd do like a rundown of NaNoWriMo. Not sure if that would be helpful. Like, this is the site, this is what it is, don't be intimidated, blah, 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 that kind of thing. I was also thinking about doing some book review type of things using these sort of slide situation. I don't know what I want to do with that. But anyway, so since I don't edit my videos, you know, I have to really, really plan how I'm going to go about each and every slide. So if I'm going to be doing a review, I don't know how I'll be structuring it. If you have any ideas, let me know. And that's gonna be it. So yeah, anything you have, let me know in the comments down below, and I will see you in, I won't see you, you know what I mean? I won't actually see you in the next video. That's a weird thing to say. I will appear in another, my voice will appear in another video, maybe reacting to some more, maybe some fantasy tropes or something like that. I want to do some more writer reacts kind of thing. And if you have any video suggestions, like I want to see more of this, or I want to see you talking about more of this, or like who the heck are you? You know, tell us more about your stories and how you write and what pantsering is for you, you know, that kind of thing. Well, anyway, let me know all the things down below in the comments, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye, people. And that is the end of this. That is the end of this video. The end, the fox is out.